Hey folks, Elio here playing the Ultra Trading Card game on the digital board game arena. This time we are playing a Bravos Basira deck, trying to take advantage of some of the new cards and seeing how far we can push Basira's advantage. Akhlut, I think, is one of the strongest cards in Trial by Frost. It's a Kappa-sized body that basically exhausts their entire reserves on enters. You can add later boost to exhaust spells cast mid-turn, and in general, I expect it to be a 3-0 staple in Basira list going forward. It is a reason to be playing Basira. When I first started testing Basira, I was mostly running Haven lists that felt a lot like Kojo plus Akhlut, which I think is quite strong, but eventually I saw someone else running a concept that I was really interested in and decided to borrow that I think is a little bit more interesting. Dimitri and Keel on Cylinder. Dimitri, a card you can normally sort of expect to see in Ixadi, can be really cool in Basira. With a Keel on Cylinder plus Basira, you can reliably get it out as an 8/7/7, win a lane, and stick around in a force to either continue to win lanes or put continual pressure on your opponents. It is a must-answer threat that is resilient to a lot of the common removal you see people playing today, like Teamwork Training, Tiny Jail, or Off You Go. But outside of our top end, we need persistent threats to start out the game. Red and Blade Dancer both work great with any boost, like the Cylinder, and themselves form must-answer threats. They are also Basira staples. Outside of this, we have utility units to put boosts on our friends. Fire Rabbit, Chiron, Vanguard can all trigger Basira reliably while pumping our Eternal or Seasoned threats. Finally, for our normal characters, we have utility units. TJ can trigger Basira, but also ramps us, so we can do more double plays or drop an early Dimitri. Haven Sarengar's rare version boosts, but we don't need every card in the deck to trigger Basira, and the Sarengar is such a strong card advantage card, as is, that we're happy playing it at the common. Moving on to spells, we have 3 Helping Hand, and then a 1 of Intimidation and Mana Eruption. Helping Hand is critical, but the interaction is for emergency use only. In general, we want to be the ones putting the biggest must-answer threats onto the board. Our last card is 2 copies of Floral Tent. The tent works excellent protecting a Dimitri, as even a shrunken Dimitri still sticks around and kicks ass. From the reserve, you can anchor a Red or Blade Dancer, and in general, every line of text on this card does cool things in the deck. Finally, our uniques. A Bravos Vanguard replacement, a Seasoned Pathfinder that may be able to sabotage, and a trainee that can answer permanents or trigger Basira. That's the deck. Let's jump into some games. Okay, up against Fen. Now, I really like reserve attack against Fen. Even though Fen has a lot of extra resources, like you can actually kind of tap them out a little bit by going after the reserve. So I'm pretty excited about taking or keeping 2 Haven Bouncers for follow-up turns. And this turn I can just open up with a tiny gym that I can start ramping with. But eventually these Haven Bouncers should come in handy. And I do like keeping the TJ over the Bravos Blade Dancer here. Both of them are strong, but I'm going to try going with the ramp since it sort of acts as a draw card rather than just the value of the Blade Dancer. Especially since I'm going to be wanting to cast 3 drops in these Haven Bouncers, I'm going to want more mana so I can start double playing. They open up with a common Nyala, so nothing to swap there. We go Tiny Gen left, and we can trade lanes this turn. We put back a Helping Hand here. Nothing that we have right now is actually the things that get benefit from Helping Hand, and we can go ahead and play a TJ from hand and TJ from reserve this turn. And next turn, we can start bouncing on it. But yeah, we'll open up left here with the TJ, where we're likely to get the lane for ourselves. And maybe they go left and we can go TJ right to take a lane, but at the very least, we probably will play this out either way, just so we can start ramping. They do go left, swapping their Nyala for a Kodama that can anchor. And we 2-1 advance here. And we'll start ramping, which is good. Put back red here. Keel on Cylinder is pretty important in the deck, especially with us not having other ramp here. I definitely do not want to get rid of these bouncers, and the Cylinder will even help future bouncers, and we'll draw more things like Red or Dimitri, I'm sure. Now, they do have Nyala in hand, and because of our limited interaction, this Lyra Festival is potentially scary. That being said, I think that we can push for a win if they start trying to go for like Lyra Festival turns with this costing 4 mana. So I'm not gonna like aggressively attack that. Instead, I'm gonna stall out with a Keelan cylinder to start building the board, see what they do. They don't play the Nyala, they just play the festival there. So with that, we can actually Bouncer and Jin for the rest of our turn. We'll open with the Bouncer on the right, which should be able to contest the lane with a boost from Basira if we give it to it with the boost from Tiny Jin. Indeed, we get to take the left lane with water, we block the mountain, and we tie on the right. And we're now 3 points away from advancing. We can go ahead and get counters on our cylinder so that we're set up for the next turn. And we're really far ahead on mana here. Depending on what we draw, I definitely want to keep the Bouncers. Akhlut's the best card in the deck. And if they do end up festivaling us, Intimidation is going to be a way to sneak through a win while they waste mana with a do very little kind of effect. So we'll actually not mana this turn, and we'll probably Bouncer plus Akhlut or maybe double Bouncer. It's nice with the Fen here, we can actually still Akhlut on the right side. We don't need to use the cylinder. Oh, actually, sorry, we can do the left side. We don't need to use the cylinder, though. We can use the Basira and just double exhaust them on the left. This lets them swap out a card. Sleight of Hand, very cool card. And we can, I'm not super concerned about this sleight, so rather than play the Bouncer from hand, I'll just Bouncer on the left, and I can probably force the win on the left, and if they want to play a non-anchored Aloe on the right to take it, that's fine. Instead, it's Esmeralda, which will take the lane, but they have so many cards going into reserve this turn. Like, this is the kind of thing where, even though Fen has all this resource advantage, between our Bouncers and our Akhluts, we're actually going to be putting on so much pressure, forcing them to play from hand. We still have the Bouncer available here. The Akhlut's still going to lock up whatever they do have left in reserve. The Fen has no resources, and we're 2 lanes away from winning. Here, I think we may get Dimitri down this turn. We also may Akhlut this turn. I want to keep these 2 cards to begin with, and I think that the Dimitri will be a kind of must-answer card here. So we'll put back the Fire Rabbit. We do have more stuff here that we want to start getting more into our mana. Now, they play Aloe Vera on the right without anchoring it. They have another Aloe Vera in hand. It's probably right to actually Akhlut here, take the Basira, and exhaust both their cards here. But we get a little greedy and put out the Dimitri instead on the left side. And the nice thing about this is that, it's not weak to a Cloth Cocoon, which could be in their hand. And if it wins, it'll stay around until the end of the game, which is nice. They actually play a Sandman, though, which is awkward for our given play. And now, they don't have any festival. What we can actually do here is just kind of blow this Intimidation on Aloe Vera. We don't want to pass, because if we do that, they'll anchor the Aloe Vera and move on to this lane, continue blocking us on water, be resupplying, and we'll lose all that resource advantage that we fought for. So we can, Intimidation here. Best they can do is anchor the Sleepy Boy. And we still start next turn on a very strong foot, even though this is asleep. And we can open up with a triple exhaust from the Akhlut, hitting their whole board. We'll not mana here again. We have the mana for double Akhlut or Akhlut Bouncer Helping Hand. Actually, sorry, we can't triple exhaust to begin with because Cylinder's not available. So we'll open up with the Akhlut from the reserve that they know about, hitting the, you could hit the Aloe and the Sandman, and then the anchor effect isn't available until they play something from the Kodama. But they also may just play this Kodama as like a body, and that's like the main thing that beats us here is just getting stats on the board. So I'm going to hit the Aloe and the Kodama instead. That also has the benefit that, like, if they do any sleight of hand Nyala stuff, like, the thing they're going to return is the Sandman. And I'd rather them return an unexhausted thing than one of their exhausted things and getting value out of it. So we'll go Akhlut on the right, start pressuring both lanes, and exhaust everything but the Sandman here. They play Aloe on right. We can do our bouncer and go ahead and hit this Sandman. And then they play a unique Studious Disciple that can actually put our Dimitri to sleep. They do hit the Dimitri. But we're going into the final round with the Dimitri still around. They boost it just, I think, out of a show of concession because they're not winning against the power we have on board, no matter what. Like, they either have to get rid of this Dimitri or lose. So we put counters on the cylinder. We don't need to show our helping hand. We have an Akhlut in hand anyway, and we'd rather kind of actually obscure the fact that we have Akhlut available to us to tie up their reserve. They only draw one card this turn, and we get to freeze everything in their reserve that they don't open up by playing. They do have Hather. They open up with a unique, which will put the Dimitri to sleep. Now, they put counters on it to try to trigger the Basira, but we're not going to fall for that. We'll just open Akhlut, and we can hit... really what we should do is we should hit everything but the Cloth Cocoon, because the Cloth Cocoon won't be able to kill the Akhlut, and we'll just win with that. But we do actually... really, we're exhausting so many things here that there's not going to be a way for them to win. But we hit everything but the Haven, or the Hather, which lets them return one thing to their hand and play it, but that one thing is not going to be enough to beat Hather on the left, or Akhlut on the left. So we just really had them locked because Dimitri, even though it was consistently answered this game, it locked up all their resources and had a threat that forced the win for us. So yeah, next game. Okay, up against Auraq. I'd like to keep the Sarengar so that we have some card advantage there. I like to keep TJ, and this gives us a nice 2-1 play to do turn 1, as well as give us a ton of card advantage turn 2 with the Tiny Jin and Sarengar both effectively drawing us a card. Mana Eruption can be good against a later Hydrocana, but I don't really have the luxury of keeping this the entire time when there's only one card in their deck that this can be good against. And so out of that, the other thing that I like against Auraq is attacking their resources, so you can potentially get rid of their most optimal lines to put counters on Auraq. So I'll keep the Bouncer over the Floral Tent and the Chiron. They open Martingale on left, which we can beat with a Sarengar on the left. They play their own Sarengar on the right, which we can now hit with the Jin. Now, going into our turn, we have an interesting choice where we can either double spell on our side and basically draw 2 cards, get an advantage there, or we can just play the Bouncer and maybe something from hand to get rid of their Sarengar and cut them off for their own resource advantage. I do want to keep the Dimitri here, so I put back the Bouncer, and with them going through their cards quickly, I'm actually going to Bouncer on the Sarengar and just plan on getting rid of this in my own discard and try to choke them on resources. I don't know if that's right. If we had done these 2 things, they would get their Sarengar, but we'd be up on cards and we'd be able to play Dimitri next turn. So it was a choice that we made. We'll see how it pays off, though. I think that in general against Auraq, I'm a little afraid of their value engine, so I'm more looking to choke them off rather than accelerate myself. But that may have been wrong and a little too greedy to do that. Of course, they do draw another Sarengar anyway. Here, we'll get rid of our more expensive things so we can go 2-drop Blade Dancer. And plan next turn that hopefully we can have a Dimitri turn that we feel good about. All right, now we won't be able to match that either way with the higher roll there, and with so we can just go right here and there's no reason to play the Blade Dancer out now because it's not giving us a lane win, and this will let us Dimitri plus Blade Dancer on our turn, which will let us get the counter on Dimitri. Here, I think in the future I'll like the red over the Bravo's Blade Dancer, and this Floral Tent can potentially protect our Dimitri. So we'll put back one of the Blade Dancers, open up with Dimitri on the right, since this is the lane that if we push forward, we have a 50-50 chance of being in the forest. They see their third Haven Sarengar. Now, we play the Blade Dancer. We can either put the counter on the Blade Dancer to make it stronger going forward, or we can put on the Dimitri and hope that it has 50-50 chance of sticking around. We do put it on the Dimitri. Again, maybe a little greedy. And we see a card that I didn't really expect, which is Break the Ice. Normally I'm just afraid of Cloth Cocoon out of Auraq. But we're punished pretty hard here because that's going to stop the Dimitri and make it so that we're not advancing here. So a pretty brutal turn for us, where we are paying the cost of our own greed. We basically put a count on the Dimitri, hoping for a 50-50 shot, and now our Blade Dancer is just weaker. We didn't advance the lane. Just an ugly spot. Here, the Cylinder, though, we can maybe use to start getting the Dimitri back, and in general, pushing our normal game plan. We'll put the red back and see what they open up with. Tanuki hits the Dimitri, which hurts. That was what we were trying to really push. So we'll stall out, see what they do with our more obvious plays like the Cylinder. And they're pushing hard left. We're not going to be able to advance on left with the green, so I want to put the Floral Tent on the left so that it doesn't get removed this turn, because we'll end up pushing right. And plan on putting the other cards here and having this tent stick around the next round. Here, we have double Akhlut mana. If we got rid of the Chiron, we could also drop Tiny Djinn, but I'd rather have the Chiron to trigger things later on, and I don't expect this to be the difference maker, so I'm just going to keep everything in hand. We'll see what they get with the mana, with the Auraq. It is a Taiga. We'll open with an Akhlut on the left and tying up this Tanuki. We don't want to put the counters on it from Basira right now, because we need to see where they build out to try to beat that area. Now, though, because they're starting to fight over the right, we'll use all of our gas, doing just an Akhlut purely for the power, because it's a big body, and putting it on the right side here is going to get us a total of 6 power on the right for them to fight over. I hope that they don't have enough to finish us off here. They do put a unique Nisei here, which they won't be able to play, but they could use the boost effect on. And luckily, their last card in hand is not a 2-drop creature, which would have been brutal for us. Now, because of that, we go into one of the later rounds in an okay position. We'll at least be able to exhaust one of these things with Akhlut, unless he does Nisei Persephone with the support. And here, we drew another 1-drop. We don't need to ramp, so we'll put the Tiny Djinn back. They do try to fight against the Akhlut by just putting out a boosted Persephone and immediately making the Taiga Dragon on the right side. So with that, we'll stall with the tent on the right and see what we hit from this. Now, we could plan on doing Akhlut 2-drop, 2-drop, or we can do Akhlut Cylinder 2-drop Helping Hand. I do want a Helping Hand to keep this Akhlut around, so that means we're going to be playing the Cylinder, which means we can stall one more round by opening up with the Cylinder first. They are going hard on the left, but they don't actually block much here. Now, it should point out that if Persephone wasn't here, we could totally win this lane. But because this is a green lane, we're fighting for 10. So we need to fight over the right lane. We mainly want to get the Sarengar into our reserve so we can maybe start drawing cards. But we'll try to not use our Cylinders so that we can have counters on both of them next turn, because we're going to be winning this right lane this turn. And we want as much free stuff as we can. So we push for the lane on the right with just our while blocking them with just our hand, and we'll plan on just keeping Akhlut plus Chiron, which are going to be our most powerful things for the colors that we're fighting over that are available. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We don't gain any advantage by banning something, so we'll just keep it all and take what we can. They get an Esmeralda that does immediately resupply. Cloth Cocoon would hit our Akhlut, so we can Cylinder to Akhlut on the right, tapping out their reserve. Now, we thought that we should get 3 triggers from this, 1 from Akhlut and 2 from the separate Keelan cylinders, but it's asking us to use the Basira here, which we thought that we'd be able to avoid. So I don't know if that's a bug or not, but rather than force the Basira on the right, we leave them the option of playing the Nisei, which they don't. They go with the Tanuki from hand to stop our Chiron before we can play it, which we can then just play the Bravos Vanguard on the left, getting another boost on the Akhlut. Helping Hand will be our last trigger for Basira, so we can put it wherever we need it, and we can instead just tap the Nisei with this boost. Last card in hand is not something I can play. Maybe it was Hydrocana. So with that, we can double advance this round by going up on water with the Helping Hand, and that will be GG. That's the deck in the games. I'm out of town right now, so I have a bit of content that I've pre-recorded and pre-edited to be putting out, but hopefully that tides over until I get back. Yeah, stick around, subscribe if you like, and yeah, until next time, I'm Elio. Thank you.